Thank you for joining us this evening. So I'll start with a bit of an intro and then I'll hand over to Nick, who's going to sort of lead most of this evening. A bit of a background about why we're here. So Nick has been working on the exchange in lots of different capacities for a long time, and he'll share a little bit more about that in a minute. But he and Scott from our community as well reached out and said that they wanted to look at running a workshop that would allow people to learn a little bit more of the realities of how you build a bot to automate on the exchange. It's easy enough to say, you know, you should be automating, automation's great, but how do you actually do it? And Nick was kind enough to put his hand up and go, you know, I'll show you how I do it. Now, obviously, precursor here to everything is that there's no perfect way to build a bot on the exchange. Everyone's situation will be different. Everyone's approach needs to be different. But as a starting point, I think it really helps to see how someone else has done it for them. So incredibly grateful to Nick for sharing his approach, for sharing his code base, which he's put an awful lot of time into developing and learning over the years. So there's a lot of knowledge that he's sharing this evening. So incredibly kind of him to offer to do that. More generally, I guess, why we're here, you know, anyone who's heard me talk before knows that I'm really passionate about education, community enablement. That's what we're about at Betfair, and particularly in my team, the automation team. We're all about trying to support you guys to be better, to be more successful, and to develop on your automation and modeling journey. So that's why we're here facilitating this. One of my favorite parts about our community in Betfair Australia, particularly in the sort of more analytical space, is the Slack community. I spend quite a lot of time on there talking to people. I recommend joining. It's a great place to meet people, learn, share challenges and successes, but it's also great to have that as a space to talk during sessions like this. So one of my very cool team who's running this in the background, Ash, is going to share a link in the chat at the bottom. That's an invitation to join our Slack community if you're not already. That will only last, I think, the next 7 days. So if you're looking at this as a recording afterwards, don't stress. The link won't work, but you can email us at automation@betfair.com.au. Again, Ash will share a link. That is an email address as well. And more generally, you're always welcome, guys, to reach out to us if there's anything that we can help with along the way. Through this evening, we will keep the Q&A panel open. We will have a proper Q&A session at the end, but we also might pick things up as we go, so do drop them in as you think about them. We'll also keep the chat open here so you can talk to each other, but equally, like I said, probably a better forum to talk about it in Slack if you want to go over there. Your call. We are recording this evening's workshop so that we can, share it more widely afterwards with people who can't be here and reach, a different group. But the recording will end when we start the breakouts so that you guys can jump on and have some real conversations without worrying about, having conversations on a recorded line. So with no further ado, Nick, can we grab you on? Hopefully. There we go. And maybe video.
Hey there.
There we go.
Back again. Thank you.
I did mean to say, if you're on Slack, maybe use the meetups channel. I think that's the most logical one to jump into. And I will keep half an eye on that, so shout if you need me along the way. But Nick, hi. Thank you again.
Back again.
Super grateful for this. As a start, I wanted to sort of go through, before I hand over properly to you, I wanted to give a bit of your background and your experience, sort of give people a bit of context about where you're coming from. So obviously, you've used the exchange in a variety of capacities over quite a long period of time. Can you share a little bit of what your background is, sort of pre-Betfair and with Betfair?
Yeah, so it's like just started life as a normal software developer, many years at Comsec, CBA. So just normal, I guess, big systems like that. In 2016, I started working at a medium to large size syndicate in Sydney's east, and ran the sort of exotic side of that, looked after the exotics placement for a few years, which was wonderful. Working in racing has got such a beautiful rhythm to each day. It's like the same event again and again, but with all these beautiful little different wrinkles on it. I loved it. It's one of the most satisfying things ever to run a system that works well. So that was mostly hitting the tab APIs, but that was with a fair bit of money. I think we turned over, say, 40 million a year. So quite significant. And then since then, I've been doing my own stuff, both consulting and proprietary trading.
And more recently, you continue to do dev in your own right, yeah?
Yeah, so I work full-time during the day as a consultant, mostly data engineer and data scientist. And it's funny, the professional dev on the titles, like professional deviant. Like I turn over a lot of my own money, both on Betfair and fixed.
Anyone who knows you.
Yeah, it's good. It's wonderful. And like I said last time, I think we're in a wonderful space in the Australian racing industry. New South Wales, the market base rate is, high. But there's a lot of wonderful outs. Liquidity. Spring was wonderful. The exchange really shone. The day the tab went down, everything worked perfectly on Betfair. The liquidity's been wonderful. Race closures is now fixed, I think. It was a dream run for Betfair over the spring, I think.
We were definitely happy, and we're loving seeing the liquidity just continue to grow. Like, this was our strongest spring by a long way.
Yeah.
And things have built since COVID lockdowns and so on, but we're really happy that we're continuing to build and get stronger, which you wouldn't necessarily, we couldn't guarantee that. So,
wonderful. South Australia is huge, 5% now. Wonderful.
Yeah, it's been really nice there, and on a couple of other things too, to see people put their money where their mouth is in terms of the impact of pricing decisions.
Yep.
That it's easy to say New South Wales 10% is painful and 5% on SA is great, but to then actually have the data points to back that up is even more valuable, I guess.
Yeah, the commission-free days, huge publicity. Really and all the sort of niggling issues we saw in a few, like the race closures was a big one that I think hurt people when that 4-second gap. If someone stayed in the barriers, and that's gone. That's wonderful. That responsiveness to a problem is really, really good.
I think the thing for us is, you guys are the lifeblood of what we do and of the exchange, and especially the automated community. Without the automated community, so much of our liquidity comes from automated bots. And, that means that things like reliability, consistency, this matters. We can't just sort of, go, oh, well, it only happens occasionally, because you can't rely on something like SP, as you said.
Yeah. Like Bow and Declare in 2019, it's like, oh, man, really? I got $9. And then that problem didn't occur again, which is wonderful, right? It's, you can sort of get kicked in the shins once and you go, oh, that's not a great outcome, but to see it responded to was wonderful. Like, I know you put a lot of effort into listening to people to say, Randwick race 4 didn't, the market didn't close quick enough. Just that, it's a small thing, but it means so much to get an accurate BSP on a Randwick race 4 in August. And it's those little things that add up so much.
I think that the big thing for us is that, company motto is to create more winners. And I think that comes down to a lot of those little things. You know, if you don't know your customers and you can't look after your customers, it's, you know, that's what an exchange is about, is you guys. You know, all we are is the tech in the middle. So, you know, if we don't listen, we're not doing our jobs. So anyway,
let's kick on there. Well done on spring. It was good. Very good.
I think it was a great spring. I think for me, that's, you know, that really speaks to why I'm comfortable putting you up here as someone who I respect and whose dev I respect, but also whose industry experience I respect. So, you know, we'll talk tonight a little bit about how to go about building an automated program, but also about particularly how to build a program that automates on Australian racing, which is quite a big niche, but a niche thing. And there are a lot of things that, you know, trip people up along.
It's idiosyncratic for sure.
Yeah. And there are so many of those things where you don't know it's a problem until you hit it. You've hit it a lot. So, you know, that's why, you know, that industry knowledge that goes with your dev experience, I think, is really valuable. So tonight we're going to be looking at a code base that's primarily in C#. That's partly because that's, you know, as you said, pretty extensible, and is a pretty well-known language too.
I'm probably the trouble with languages as you move towards the more scripting style is just your thread management. You're going to need to have stuff happening in the background, and Python just isn't good at that. So C# a really good, beautiful language that's done really well. Java's fine too, right? There's lots of good choices.
And they're pretty similar too. So, you know, a lot of this too, I think it's great that you've given the code base, and there are a lot of people who might find that useful. But more than that, I think a lot of the value here will come from talking about your architecture and talking about your trip hazards and how to avoid them. So even if you don't use your code base, if you go out and find one of the other libraries out there, if you go and find Betfair Lightweight or whatever your approach is, at the end of the day, I think the advice that you'll be giving through the evening is relevant basically regardless of which code you're using as the core of your automation.
It's quite funny. Like, we started the discussion maybe in midwinter on the forum, and I said, like, my bots are like 250 lines long, excluding the model, right? The model will have arbitrary complexity, which could go into the thousands of lines. But to just do a bot on Australian racing shouldn't be that hard. And everyone's going, like it was a case of shut up and show me the code, right? Which is what we're about to do.
So I want to, just before we jump into you going through your stuff, I wanted to, we'll see how this goes, but
our polls.
In theory, we want to try a poll. So I've got two of these we're going to ask, because guys, we want to know about you. In a normal room, we'd go hands up, we'd ask for thoughts and opinions. Much harder to do in this environment. We're going to try a poll. We'll see how this goes. So Ben's going to chuck it up on the screen. Again, I've got a very good team. I'd be lost without them. First one is just a yes, no. So as someone watching this, coming into it, do you consider that you have any programming experience at all? So again, so programming, we're talking any code language. We don't really care what. We're just trying to gauge where you are on that experience spectrum. And I will give you about a minute to answer this. You shouldn't need much more than that. And then we'll go on to a second question. The second question, I'll flag here before we close this one. So the second question is around why you're going to writing your own program. We're going to bucket a few reasons why you've chosen, either in the past or you're choosing now, to not use a third-party tool built by someone else, and why you're planning on going down your own path. Obviously, there'll be lots of things where it's like, well, it's actually lots of these different reasons, but we want you to choose one as your primary, so that we can sort of gauge against that. So first up though, Ben, can you put that second poll up while we look at the results of the first one? Are we able to do that? That's a plan.
Not that I know of. I think it has to go from one to the other.
Okay, that's all right. Let's look at the results of the first one then. That's
Okay.
easy. So where's our results? There we go. Okay, so we're really even split. 46, 54, nice and even. That's actually more even than I thought it might be, which is good. If you don't have programming experience, obviously building your own program is going to be tricky.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't learn. Like there are lots of simple languages you can learn, particularly things like Python,
Don't be intimidated either, right? Like I'm a civil engineer by trade. I came out of uni unable to program in 1996 or something. It's not hard. Just learn it.
I think the big thing is there are so many code libraries that you can use. You know, if you're a Python person, Betfair Lightweight, it's probably the one most used, partly because Python is an easier language to learn, and Betfair Lightweight is well supported, and has a good community around it as well. But, you know, whether you're in Python, you're in R, these are really easy starting languages. Java, like you said, these are, you know, pretty standard uni language, but you don't have to build it all from scratch. There are lots of libraries and repos out there that you can use as your code base that makes your life a lot easier. Let's jump on to the second one, Ben. So you've got, I think, 5 options here. So what is or was your motivation for moving from a third-party tool to your own bot, building it yourself? So the options we've given are 4 plus other. So the 4 being sophistication of strategy, i.e. you might need to swap the poll out, Ben. My strategy is more complicated than I can do in BetAngel, Grass, BF Bot Manager, whatever. 2, speed of implementation. The program just isn't fast enough. 3, integration with other data sources, including your own model. You're finding it hard to integrate, you know, third-party tool with dynamic odds or third-party tool with your model. And the 4th one, that it's just too hard to make the program do what you want it to, even if you think it should technically be possible. So if you could choose an answer there, or other if we've missed something, and if we have missed something, I'm really keen to hear what. So maybe chuck it in Slack, on the comments, whatever. You guys know me, I like to know what people think. Cool. Hopefully not much longer. And all right. Ben, can you tell us what the answers look like?
At the moment, it's 28% sophistication of strategy, 24% integration with other data sources, 21%, it's pretty even spread, complexity of third-party tools, 21% other, or others just bumped up to 22%.
I expect more other guys.
So 86% of people have voted so far. So
I like this. I've got a couple of other answers coming in on Slack. So I'm a professional software dev, so why wouldn't I? Fair call. Other, good old Michael. I didn't know there was another option. I love these. Other for the challenge, that's fair. Other, I was at the pub, but technology was great. I was able to watch the start on the Uber on the way home and now back at the home computer. Yeah, Rob, I'll give you a mark for that one. Cool. No, that's really relevant. If you've got any other feedback on that, always keen to hear. Otherwise, let's shift across. So, Nick, I'm going to hand to you, and I will sort of jump back and forth occasionally if I've got a particular point I want to talk about. But otherwise, leave it for you to run, starting with architecture, I guess.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to share my screen. I'm just trying to find the button to share my screen. Is it there?
We got it. I think it's the big green one at the bottom. At least.
Yeah. Okay. I've probably. Yeah. Host. I think
Ben.
I need Ben.
Can
Yeah.
you sort that?
Yep.
We got it.
1 sec. Hang on.
Really there.
There we go. Sorry.
Sorry.
There we go.
Sometimes it goes.
Okay.
Yep.
Try that.
And it is this one.
There we go.
Great. I might just quickly talk about the actual API because thinking back to my journey, I think the first thing you need an API key, right? Is this the best email? BDP at betfair.com?
Any of the above, or
Yep.
information at betfair.com.au. Anything that finishes in .au.
Yeah. So I think the website encourages you to pay a fair amount of money for it, and emailing this may get you a better deal. Is that fair to say?
Give me a call. We'll have a chat.
Yeah, excellent. And that probably leads us on the second point. There's some expectation of betting activity for API use, right? Don't smash it. We had the discussion, I think, on the forum about abusing some of this stuff may be the quickest way to get yourself in the bad books. So it's not a student activity, right? Like you've got, it's a commercial arrangement. And I said, yep. API wrappers are really easy to get, right? You can grab them at most languages. You can actually hit it as a raw JSON endpoint, but using a language, a specific wrapper is way more easy. I actually went to start writing a bot from scratch on the weekend to make it simple and self-contained. And they've introduced a whole bunch of new stuff. Like you can use certificates now to make it more secure. And there's also reactive extensions. And I said, oh man, with any of this stuff, right, don't feel you have to learn everything straight away. Do the simplest thing, and anything that you don't think you need to understand, put in the too hard basket, and so mentally note it and go, okay, I can do this, but I don't think I need it now. I'm going to come back to it. You want to make it really simple. The code I've actually managed to get up, so it's a Betfair Down Under.
I might just jump in quickly there, Nick. I've got an opinion on this that I'm pretty strong on. I work with an awful lot of people building automations, working on their strategies. I think particularly knowing dev types as a personality, it's really easy to get caught up in the code and getting the code perfect and beautiful and working the way you want. What I would say is there is no point to having a beautiful, perfect bot if you don't have a winning strategy.
100%, yep.
So, as you said, as Paul said in the past, so many people have said, do the bare bones of what you need safely in terms of, that isn't going to lose your whole bank because you haven't, checked to see whether you've got a bet on, but do the bare bones to get you into the market and starting to bet. But until you're comfortable that it's actually profitable and successful, don't put the whole house on the actual building of the bot before you've got a strategy to back it.
Yeah. It's a utility task. You shouldn't be boiling the ocean here. You want this as simple as possible and focus on your strategies. Paul said it so well, right? And Paul's a guy I listen to every day of the week, Paul Smith. Yeah, your strategies are king. It's not, this is an enabler. This isn't the golden goose at all. Cool. The sample's up there. And you should be able to find it on Twitter too. It's got
I've just shared it. I'll share it
awesome.
in the comments.
So some of this will be like, man, when's he going to talk about betting? Most of this stuff, this hygiene stuff, is so important. This is dead stuff, right? Like the first thing you do, just put in a logging library. Guarantee the first time you put your bot running in the wild without you watching, it's going to do the most crazy bet you ever thought possible. It's going to back something at $150, put $200 on it on race 3 at Alice Springs. and yeah, it's going to struggle to get out of the gates. And you go, what happened? You're going to need to understand why that happened for sure. Also, try to think about a logging library where you're going to be able to put that up in the cloud, like in CloudWatch or App Insights. This sort of boring hygiene stuff for devs becomes so important once you're at scale, right? Like, assuming your bot's going to be successful, 3 weeks down the line, you're going to have gigabytes of text files. And at some point, your strategy will wander off and start doing something crazy. Having that in a platform where you can analyze it really, really makes sense. And this is my favorite, the kill switch. Put in a kill switch. Read this case study. This is a high-frequency trading firm that lost $440 million in 30 minutes for the lack of a kill switch. Is Karen Kamwela Test. A certain syndicate ended up with a mismatch market and was placing crazy bets to the point that looked like it was obviously wrong, and Betfair found it before anyone else, and I think disabled the account because the kill switch was hard to find for various reasons. Put in a kill switch and know where it is. Check it before every trade. Make your kill switch so easy to put on. It's just the worst feeling in the world to be at a barbecue on a Sunday afternoon and log in and see your account has been drained, or is being drained, right? Like losing 200, losing 200, losing 200. You just want to kill that, right? You want to be able to kill it really quick. And I'm going to say it again, right? Safety first. It's still gambling. Think about your choices. Really seriously think about your choices. Here, this is, Betfair didn't ask me to put in this, but really think about, it's still gambling. Kill switches again. Sanity checks before you place a bet are really important. If you think you should be betting into a 100% market, check that, right? If it's still 140%, somewhere something's got messed up, avoid the bet. If it's Australian thoroughbreds and you think the market should be about to jump and it's 140%, it's off. It's either been delayed or abandoned, and the code base has got that sanity check, so it's really easy to do.
Do you want to share your screen at this point, or are you happy not?
Can you see my screen? Or?
No, just so you know. I just wasn't sure whether we were supposed to or not.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. No. Oh, you haven't said anything yet.
I hit the share button. Yeah.
There we go. We got it. Sorry, as you were saying.
Thank you.
Go on.
Limit the amount of money in your account, right? Everyone's going to blow up an account. It's like your rite of passage to blow up an account. I've never used it, but you can use wallets, right? Is that right, Karen? Sort of?
Not anymore. So you used to. There used to be a UK wallet and Oz wallet while we were regulated out of Tasmania, but the Oz wallet doesn't exist anymore.
Cool. Okay. So if you're going to put a bot live, have as much money in your account. What I think Misha described as a capital investment. Something you know that might not be there tomorrow when you wake up. Your chances of blowing up on your first bot are very high. And also, sorry, let me click back to the screen. There's a bunch of safety mechanisms you can put on your Betfair account. So put those on to your player protection stuff. So a bot really does a bunch of very simple things. You set up your initial state of the world. So you want to log into the exchange. You want to get the data relevant to your engine. You want to get the program data or the race schedule, whatever you want to call it, and then schedule that. Really simple. And then all you do in a loop, check your kill switch, get the next race that's going to be on, generate whatever trades are relevant to that race, and place those trades. And once you've placed that, you've recorded that, and you'll get the next race. It should be that simple. I can't see. So if you're doing a trading bot, right, that's trying to arb or something, it's going to be more complex. If you're just doing a bot that's getting a whole bunch of relevant market data and saying in these conditions, I want to place a trade, it should be no more complex than this. So this is what my code looks like. The actual yellow statements, method calls. And it's literally what I said, right? Do your initial setup. Check your kill switch. If you've been killed, just break. Exit the program. There's always another day, right? The beauty of racing is that tomorrow morning, there'll be more races on, right? We do 364 days a year. Don't worry about missing a race. Get the next race. This is deceptively sort of complex because lots of weird stuff happens. Generate the potential trades for that event. So saying, in this state of the world, would I place a bet? And then place those bets if required. I like to keep those two steps separate because as your bot complexity grows, your trade generation logic may become more and more and more complex.
And
so these two things
sort of dependent on each other too, because you could have, trades that may be dependent on other trades being true.
Yeah, that's really hard. Like once you get into that that sort of logic state of laying stuff off, you really need to. You want to do a formal state diagram and map it out properly. But this should like sort of cater for 95% of scenarios, and then check for sleep because races end at the end of each day. So I just normally sleep for what's this like 15 seconds, and then I'll go back and see. We had that bizarre case the other day where Launceston didn't fill in the holes for their when they moved the rails out, and the meeting just kept getting pushed back and back, and it was eventually abandoned. So program data is one of the most annoying things you're going to have to deal with. At the start of the day, the race schedule looks really nice. And by 10 minutes before the first race, something's always gone wrong. The Betfair is okay, and that's what's in the code. I'd consider dynamic odds the gold standard here. They do a wonderful job of having someone sitting there all the time. Like everyone does, but DO is great, and their sort of resilience during the tab outage was wonderful too. Weird stuff happens all the time, right? The amount of times that an ambulance and a vet can turn up at a North Queensland racetrack on time, you can almost count on no hands. It just every day it's push back one, and that will affect when you place bets. The worst thing about the Betfair API is the event ID, right? It's always 7 for trots and gallops, and you need like a pretty ugly filter to get rid of that. The dynamic odds API has got different codes, but they're in the midst of a major rewrite. So I'll actually just jump into the code base here because that's simple. So this bot is based on the ratings. So, sorry, just let me get to the ratings.
Basically the ratings that we share on the hub, which has a JSON endpoint.
Yep. So this JSON endpoint. So I've configured that in my config file. So I just pick that up and materialize that into code. So if we quickly, I've got obviously thoroughbreds at stop for the day, but I've mocked it up so we can hopefully place a trade on the trots race in 5 minutes. So let's just quickly go through each step. So kill switch, right? So I've got a double layered kill switch. I have at a global level, so I can kill everything, kill all the bots, or I can kill a particular bot. And I will then typically have a application on my phone, which can trigger that. For the sort of barbecue scenario where you sneak away and check your Betfair balance and you notice it is deteriorated at an alarming rate. Just kill the lot, right? And come back tomorrow. That's easy. So this is just a stored proc call to SQL Server. The trouble with having this in your config file is if you don't have a laptop on you and your bot's running on some computer, it's an awful feeling. Getting the next race is pretty simple, right? It's just we download all our race data from Betfair. So that's a pretty simple call in the startup. So initial setup, I connect myself to Betfair. I download the hub ratings. So this is all pretty simple stuff. There's no great complexity here. This is my dummy code for race 2 at Tamora, which is in 3 minutes. So we'll start this up soon. Then I load the markets and I set up a timer to read into those markets again and again. So every 2 minutes, I throw out my program data and get it again. So this handles a case where a meeting has been pushed back one. Pretty simple stuff. So generating the trades, pretty easy. This is just getting all the data. This is where it sort of gets ugly, right? Like I need to match a venue based. So from these ratings over here, I need to match that with this venue. So I'm going to start this up and we'll be able to see, because this race is in 2 minutes. We're talking we should have picked a Wednesday night when we had Ascot and I think Northern Tasmania's on.
100%. We should have done a Wednesday. We were going to do a Wednesday, but then it clashed with something the VIPs were doing, and then I just didn't think about racing. Just dumb of me. That's all on me.
So I'd like to have it spitting out to a log file here too. So it's just sort of, no more races to process. We might not get a bet on tonight. We just realised this at about 4 o'clock.
The actual betting is far less important than the rest of it. It's easy enough to watch a bot live. Like any day of the week, you can call me and I'll show you a bot betting live, but that's not the same as actually looking at the code. So far more worried about the code bit. So
what we're going to do, we just get our next race. So generating trades, we'll just go through. The ugly thing is always trying to match data across venues. It's easy in this case because we're using Betfair internally. There's no racing source where venue names will match up 100%. Tab dynamic odds and Betfair match 97%. But Betfair and Tab won't match on Newcastle and Newcastle AU. And Mount Isa is another one that always catches me out. MT Isa and MUONT Isa. It's such a pain. Like if you're getting tab data to do some validation, you'll need a translation table from one to the other. I always try to get back to DO and tab, which I think are almost always in sync. One of the really nice things about using dynamic odds is I actually spit the data into here, into a cache, and it will give you the Betfair market ID, which is a really nice, this is just the dynamic odds XML translated into JSON because it's easier to deal with. So this will give you both the AAP code and the Betfair code, which you just need to add a 1 dot at the start. But I really like that. And obviously you'll get the number, which is the really superior way.
The other thing I'll share here, Nick, is I'll share in the chat a link to a spreadsheet showing all of the track names and abbreviations that we use so that you know what you're matching back to.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't always help with the external sources, but at least you then know that we don't use Randwick Kensington or Kensington. We just use Randwick. this is sort of, we keep this up to date to try and make it easier for you guys to do that matching.
It's always hard because you think it'll be static, but we had it in Innisfail the other day. The Cairns racetrack had an issue and they moved. So there's dozens of venues around the country that are, typically aren't up to TAB standard. And they moved a meeting from Cairns down to Innisfail, which, what the hell, right? It's suddenly a new venue. I need to look up the state to get the base rate. It's you wouldn't think we're adding race tracks during COVID, and we did. I think that was the first ever Innisfail meeting I've ever seen, and even Bundaberg has come online a lot more this year with tab meetings. All I'm doing here is in my config file, which I'm desperate not to show because it's got my password. Let me bring up my other. In my config file, this is a config related to my engine. So I've got a unit size, make that a bit bigger, saying I want to bet $5, which is a minimum on the backside. If I have 1.6 overs on compared to the model price and a maximum allowable market percentage of 1.1, 110%. If it's above that, I won't bet. So as I'm going through here, I'm going through each runner. I match it from the catalog, the API. I get the model for that runner, and this is it, right? This is this model. If the last traded price is greater than the rated price multiplied by the overs are required. Really, 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 really simple. I just add it to a list and return that. And I also keep a running total of the market percentage, which is just the last traded price inverted. So easy. That's generating trades. As you get more complex, you want to move this probably out of process. So your trade generation will be writing to some store, and then your bet placement will just come in and pick up the latest. Especially exotics model, if you're trying to calculate the first 4 exotics on a very big race like Melbourne Cup, that can take a minute on very high-end hardware. So you want to just, as much data as you got, you start a calculation run, you grab it back, and this is generate trades. Placing bets, so easy. The API is really good for placing bets. It's just a bunch of place instructions. So I create a list of place instructions. These are just fields that need to be filled out. I have the selection ID based on the catalog. I want to mark it on close, which is a BSP order. And I want to, this will be my $5 bet on the backside. And that's about it, place order. And I print the execution report out to the console, and I also make the console beep. So if I'm sitting there on my desk doing other work, I can hear it beep and watch the race.
Show off. Slightly better than the next race starts in 5 minutes.
Yeah, no. Well, this is bedtime, so it's an excuse to stop work and watch a bit of sky racing. That's it. That's really it. And then I just check if I need to go to sleep. This should be it. With all the spaces and everything, it's 276 lines of code. Do your setup, kill switch, get the next race, get the trades, place trades if required. Nothing. Don't bore the ocean more than that. I'm struggling to see where you placing. This will get complex. Generate trades, right? You'll have a heap of logic in here, looking at a heap of data sources and modeling. In terms of getting the bets on, you don't need to scale up from here. So if I go back to my slide deck,
the big one to watch for there is making sure that you don't place the same bet again and again. That you always,
yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you.
And obviously there are lots of different ways to do it. You know, personally, and you and I have talked about different ones, but personally, I like having like a pending cache that I keep locally.
Here it is, yeah.
I have a bet that I think I'm placing. I put it into a pending cache and I check against that until I get a confirmation from Betfair that bet went on or didn't go on. Because, you know, just because you've sent something doesn't mean it got there.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, that's a really key thing, how you handle that. Just making sure you don't place the same thing again and again.
That was my first spot experience, right? I noticed a tiny anomaly in European soccer markets that the favourites would shorten in the last, where it was like second division European soccer, the favourites would reliably shorten to some certain extent in the last 40 minutes. And so I put my back bet on. And then I don't know what I did. But the lay bet just kept going on and on and on and on. And yeah, $2,000 later, the favourite one.
And we've all been there. Like, everyone has a story like that. And you know, if there's one takeaway from tonight, by God, try and get it right before you click go.
And monitor it too, right?
Monitor it, sit there and watch it until you are confident that it's doing what you think it's going to do. But also make sure that you use as small stakes as you can when you're testing. And, you know, if you want to talk about that, equally hit me up. I'm always happy to talk. Min stakes is really important. The other thing I would flag very briefly here as a side note, we're not talking about the stream API. We're using the polling API. It is a simpler approach. And for a lot of things, it's more than adequate. If you're going to go into things that are really time sensitive, really sort of high frequency, and Nick, you know, we've talked about this. Obviously, the first thing is make sure you're hosted near the exchange in the UK.
But beyond that, hit some of those.
Yeah, but you know, obviously the stream's another option. But it is worth noting when you're if you're playing with the stream that you're and using the order stream there, that you might want to be particularly careful about how you catch for errors, because I've seen a few people get into little messes there if they're not careful and place bets because they think that a bet's gone on when it hasn't. So that's one to be aware of, and reach out if you're going across to the stream. There are some gotchas there too. We're not talking about stream gotchas particularly, but you know, always ask one of those people, you know, the ones of us who've been around and been got. let's save you that pain. Sorry, Nick. Back.
Yeah. And you don't need to go to the stream to. So for if we look at a brief 10-minute wrap up, like, you know, where to now? Like, what does this sort of program look like? What would I change if it was real? I'd definitely move the program data retrieval into a separate app, because the trouble is, right, if you just take this bot and clone it 8 times, you'll get to the stage where you're smashing the API too often. Which you should avoid. And you're also going to find bugs in your program data management. You go, this is, when Darwin race 3 gets called off, I need to, there's this scenario where I need to handle this. And you don't want to have to patch that in 8 different apps. So typically what I do is just have it all, like I showed you here in Redis. And I've just got a really static, well-known endpoint where I can just jump in and get the program data, and that another program is constantly running every 5 minutes and retrieving this. So I don't even need to worry about threading because I handle it in Redis. If you are very price sensitive, use streaming rather than trying to hit the API every 100 milliseconds. It's not hard to move to. So your architecture will be like this, right? You'll call list market book and list market book catalog to get the actual event IDs, store them in some persistent store, request a market subscription from Betfair on those market IDs, store it in something like Redis, and then for me, I use dynamic odds for my program data too. And so I can just go there. So if we quickly go back to Redis, here's a whole bunch of markets keyed by Betfair market ID. And inside of those, there's a hash set with all the runners and their IDs. So at any point in time, I can just go and grab, based on these 2 bits of data, right? I've got my meetings in here. These meetings have got a Betfair ID. So this one, and I can just then look this key up. So easy. Like I wrote this program years ago, and I couldn't even remember where it's running now to bring that data in. So easy. So anytime I need to do a bot, the data's all there. So
the other approach when you're looking at the Stream API, if you go down that route, is obviously you can go that way and subscribe to individual market IDs, but you can also subscribe to a superset. So, you can filter to Australian racing, for example,
cool. Okay.
Which is my preferred way, because then you're not sort of having to handle the different streams, connections in the same way.
So you need to up your limit there too, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'll just flag, is that there is a default 200 max market limit that you can subscribe to at one time and on one connection, but there is a little bit of flex there, so let me know if that does impact you, and it will only probably impact you if you're betting racing.
Saturdays in Australia, what you've got 17.
There's tennis. Well, the problem with the Saturday isn't the Saturday, it's the Friday, because Friday you've got Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah.
And if you're doing win and place, you're going to
25 meetings, 8
to 10. Yeah, so that's
where it's way over 200.
But there are options, so hit me up. You guys have got my details now. If you don't, you should, and we can talk about options.
Awesome. Anyway, where are we? So this bot is obviously, it probably won't make money. I haven't validated whether it makes money. You obviously use it at your own risk, right? I don't care what you do with your account, but I doubt it will make money. It could have also been implemented with a limit order. And that's exactly what I do, right? Like if I needed overs of $7.80, I would have put that as a BSP limit order, because you do see some price discontinuities at times. Something that they know can come in from 8 to 650 very, very quickly. So you can't rely on that last traded price. Handling simultaneous starts. I've never had this problem. Like I'd imagine on some Saturdays you'll get 2 races starting at 14:52. The way I've typically handled that is I look back 1 minute. So if there is 2 at 14:52, I'll place my bets for the first race at 14:52. I'll say, give me the next race, which will be all races. So it's 30 seconds, 14:52:30. It'll say, give me all the races from 14:51:30, and I'll pick that up and place it, because you've typically got a good minute of leeway in Australian racing.
Plus. Yeah. And obviously, if you're going down the rabbit hole there, you were talking earlier about threading. That's where it's not that hard to then transition to a threaded approach. Sure. You're giving a really nice kernel that is then extensible.
Yeah. The thing that always scares me about bet placement on threads is when you or especially events, is when you schedule those, and it's easy to end up with lots of stuff in like sort of an event cache. I like my betting to be massively deterministic. Like I like to see console output. I'm about to do this. I'm about to do this. And it's like, that doesn't look right. Yeah, cool, bot. Like I don't like to find a thread, like I found this event that I should respond to. And it's like, who the hell told you? Being very, just following that sort of loop model makes it really deterministic and really easy to diagnose your logs. Results downloading. There's a really cool API for that. I've heard really good things about the P&L page on Betfair. They're stable and everyone loves it. It actually responds now.
The amount of my job in the last 6 months that's been taking complaints about the flippin' P&L page.
Yeah, it's I just got my results back from Melbourne Cup. Twilight Payment. Ooh, good run, well, good run, Jamie Carr. Anyway, yeah, it's a bit slow at the moment too.
Yeah. If you can hit the endpoint yourself, do, because it's better and you get more.
Yeah, do it yourself. as Kieran mentions, AWS Island is the preferred spot. Correct. If latency is going to be a big issue.
I'd go one step beyond that and say that unless there's a really good reason you should be being hosted in Australia, once you're past testing, obviously testing, do on your local machine. Once you're past testing, unless there's a darn good reason you should be in Australia, you shouldn't be, because there are lots of good reasons for hosting near the exchange. So the exchange is in Dublin, most of it, and the benefits there, obviously the latency is a big one. You know, I'm seeing like 12 millisecond latency, and here you're talking hundreds of milliseconds, but more than that, you're also far more reliable in terms of network performance as well. So we had, I tell the story of Melbourne Cup year before last, I think, when a whole heap of the outlets went down. We went down 10 minutes, but that was because of the tunnel from here to the UK. All my automated guys sitting over on AWS were fine because they weren't impacted by that. So there are lots of good reasons to stay there, and very few ones not.
It is hard though, because the Tab API, I think,
and that's a good reason to debate, is if you need to be closer to Tab than to the exchange. I'd consider that a good reason if that's the better.
It depends. Which price.
Which one do you care about more?
I think if you were going to hit the Tab API from Ireland, you'd need some type of VPN to give you an Australian IP as well. So typically you might end up with two servers and maybe like a Redis cache in Germany, say, like or the subcontinent. It's sort of somewhere halfway between. It really depends on your strategy. Matching is a huge drama, which is why I like the I know I've said it a few times, dynamic odds. I think one of your greatest risk is matching the wrong market. We do see those crazy times where trots and gallops are on the same city
at the same time.
Be really careful for that. You don't want to be.
And that's where, if you are only betting on gallops or only betting on harness, there's no good reason why your code shouldn't include some version of that function that I posted earlier, checking for pace or trot in the name, either to include or to exclude, like whichever way around. We've all got versions that run the same thing. You're just checking for that name string. If all you bet on is one or the other, then check against it. I totally agree with Nick that matching names is an absolute pain, particularly because we don't use any punctuation. And obviously there are lots of ways to match on names. You can, do Jerry Winkler. You can use, what's the other big one, Nick? Mental blank?
Sorry. Oh, yeah. No.
There are lots, but if you can avoid it, it's better too. The other thing is, if you're not trying to match external sources and it's just about your model inputs, if you've got the chance, pull your sort of runner data from us to begin with, so that then you're matching back, to us, instead of if all you're doing is pulling the runner data from a third party and then, trying to match up. Avoid as much matching as you can, right?
For sure, yeah. You typically will need it in your model. That's a hard thing. Like, it's when you bite off that nut. So that's a bit of code you mentioned. If the market name contains pace or trot.
Yep, mine looks very similar to that, and I've shared mine in the comments and on Slack, just because that's one that people might find useful in isolation.
Yep. Venue names is just like, I don't even bet at Kenzo anymore, or Randwick Insert, or Randwick Kensington. It's just a damn mess. How you can have 4 names for the inner track at Randwick is, it's a buster. That's about it. These are the things you need to think about, and we're right on 7, so we've done pretty well.
You're doing great.
That's it. You can grab the code, grab your key tomorrow, and start running this. This will run. All you need is a Betfair account and a key to whack it in. So the config file, you can change the kill switch if you only use SQL Server. So if you do use SQL Server, there is some code in there how to create that, a kill switch table, and put the data in. And this is all you need. So sorry, these three. Your app key, username, password.
Easy. And like we said, like the whole point of this is to give you a starting point. You know, obviously, if you're a complete noob and you've never seen any code and you're looking at this and horrified, there's a bit of pre-work you need to do. But anyone who, you know, has sort of foundation level programming, the big sort of stumbling block to this bit can be, well, where do I start? You know, go to the dev docs. The dev docs are excellent. They're really, really good, but they're really big, you know, and where do and as someone who's built up a heap of stuff, basically, Nick, you know, you've cut this down to here's the basics. This is what you need as the sort of center of what you do, whichever language you choose to do it in. And then you can, you know, build out on it and build those layers. Like we said, with things like the Stream API, you know, my general advice for the streams, unless you need it, don't use it because it is more complicated to implement. Yeah. But if you're thinking you might use it later, you know, something like this where you can build in such a way that it's extensible and you can, you know, sort of bolt it on later is sensible.
100%. Just use just what you need. And like if you go, I don't need this, cool, throw in the bin and just go, oh, there's a stream thing. At the syndicate I was at, we turned over lots of money and weren't using the Stream API.
Yeah, and a lot of people for a long time, about, I'm not sure what the numbers are now, 12 months ago in Australia, we had something like 27 people using the stream. People?
Really?
It's a very, very small number. So, you know, there are a lot of people with very successful strategies that don't use it. Wow. The only comment there, I guess, and I've seen this sort of happen, is that as the top end shift across to using the stream, some people's strategies become less successful and effective because they're being sort of, you know, pipped at the post, and that's where it can sort of encourage other people to move across. But yeah, don't. And it's really hard for devs because, you know, everyone wants it to be cool and pretty and perfect, and that slightly OCD mindset can kick in. But you know, don't try and make it perfect because you're just wasting time that you could be spending on a strategy until your strategy is at a point where the implementation really matters. Obviously, with those previous notes about, you know, make it reliable and safe, but don't make yourself work until you know that you need that work.
Yeah, for sure. Safety should be half your code base. It's
or more.
Yeah, it's just.
And the more that, I think, is where a lot of, you know, that 80-20% of the 80-20 rule, you know, you can get 80% of the way to a really pretty perfect system in 20% with 20% of the effort and the time.
For sure.
And then the rest is catching for exceptions and making it better. And you know, that 20% is the hard bit. What you've provided is most of that first 80.
If you can find a simple winning strategy, and man, didn't I give you a good one last time? How about Craig Sant? I'm going to brag. I told you to back Craig Sant in Darwin, and like I don't think he hasn't missed. It's been he's been a bit up and down, and this is my little Jupiter program where I assess. I've got every sort of tipster in the country, and this is where I tips you on Craig Sant. Hey?
I love that.
He has been shooting the lights out, and it's really funny. This was sort of an experiment on edge dispersal I wanted to run. That if you scream someone's name as loud as you can, what effect would that have? It's bizarre. Like. He had two winners over $10 that were both drifting out like no one's business on Saturday. So Darwin's a funny place, as you know more than anyone. But
it's fun.
Yeah, it's just to see a bloke do that.
I think the thing with places like Darwin, and the same thing applies even in Ballarat, the sort of small, we've got people at Tamworth who do similar things.
Yeah.
When you've got a small pool of horses, same with dogs, you get to know them really well.
Yeah.
And then you can know an edge that isn't necessarily as obvious more widely.
Yeah. Like someone tells you it's right.
Yeah, that helps.
Like a whisper.
No one does that.
Yeah.
Nick, do you want to jump across to a Q&A for a bit before we jump to the breakouts?
Yep.
So I've got a couple here to start. First question. This isn't actually about the bot as much as the strategy, but I think it's one that's really good to debate because you and I might have different opinions on this. It's Michael asking about the 110% over our number that you quoted, which I know was just a number, in terms of a back market check. So just for anyone who doesn't know back market percentage as a term, what we're talking about is 100 divided by the odds summed for all selections. So to be really simple, this is the best available back price. If you had a two horse race and they were both at odds of 2 to back, 100 divided by 2 is 50, plus 100 divided by 2 is 50. You have a 100% book. It is perfect. Most of the bookies will sit at 110% if you're good, 120, 130 if you're less good. Obviously, the higher the over-round, the less good the prices that you're getting are going to be. So a lot of people, myself included, use the over-round check to see how efficient the market is. So in most Gallops races, you'd expect it to get at the jump, as in the previous 60, 120 seconds, you'd expect it to get sort of 101, 102%. A little wider in harness maybe, similar to dogs. What you're using there is the wisdom of the crowd, particularly if you're not using dynamic odds, so that you can go, anyone who's sitting there watching, watching Sky, or like Nick pulling from a different data source, if something's been delayed by a few minutes, the money's not going to be in the market the same way. And you're just using that as a bit of a sense check. So personally, I would never use 110% that wide unless I was well before the jump. If I'm betting 10 minutes out, for me, that number, and Nick, your question to answer as well, but for me, it's less about time of year and more about whether you're looking at metro or rural meets.
Yeah, so we can see, I think it's my screen's still going. Yeah. So we're looking here at the trots at Tamora, 4 minutes out. We just sort of, this is the win, back for the win. So we just got under the 110 and it's drifted out to 113.
Yep. On trots, 4 minutes, that makes sense.
But I wonder if Michael's question was also on this other metric which we had, which is the overs needed. So
that's fair. I think I might have gone off at a completely wrong tangent with the question.
But it's a good thing to discuss.
Sorry, Michael.
He's typing. Just say Nickel KG in the chat.
That's all right. No, talk about it. I think you're probably right there on Michael's point. So you were saying 10%. Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
slightly more right than me. So let's say 10% better than
this is a really good question on field quality and market predictability. What's a good metric for the quality of runners in a race? So we've got probably the easiest thing is prize money. If you're racing for $19,000 in Cairns, your quality is way less than a benchmark 72, which we'll see tomorrow in Sydney, which will be for 65,000.
Yep.
Betfair pool size will be highly correlated to that prize money. So there's a whole bunch of metrics which are going to be very highly correlated. One I'd like to explore more is prize money of winners, which will obviously, you can say no maidens, but then what about class ones, right? Yep. Which is a horse that's won one race or less. You can still run in those, I think, when you haven't won. So I think summing the prize money of each runner would be a good thing, or the jockey in that season would be a good thing. But it's a really, really interesting question. So
The other take on that, Nick, is less about what's happening in the race and more about your rated price. So a lot of the strategies I help people with care more about the price bracket that you're in. So, if you've rated something $2, you're going to want, 10% better than $2 is $2.20, and you're probably happy with $2.20 in the vast majority of situations. 10% better than odds of 20 is $22. And I'd want quite a lot better than that before I wanted to get on. So I know a lot of people have nested ifs that basically go, for this price range is the percentage that I need. And a lot of them know it's not just about the percentage difference, it's about where they're finding their value. So, a lot of people who know that if they rate something under 3s, it's a good shot. So maybe they don't need as much, but if it's in that, next chunk, maybe they need it to be a bit higher because they're less confident.
Yeah, for sure. Exposed form's another really big one. I think you could sum the up number, whether they're fourth up or first up, because this time of year it's so hard, right? We're seeing our first summer horses now, and they can be rubbish. And it's such a deceptive thing. There's something to win every race, but we saw that $100 shot win that no race today.
That was very nice.
Sorry?
Very nice.
Yeah. But I'm still trying to work out the perfect metric. The metric I use now is literally from Orr Stakes to Stradbroke, and from Memsie Stakes to Kingston Town. It's betting time. And the rest of the time you either should be skiing or surfing.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think, Nick, John, jump across to the next one. So this is asking for you to explain a bit more about which elements you pull from dynamic odds. That's mainly around start time, I think.
Yeah. So I'm still sharing. So the dynamic odds API will give you basically everything you see on the UI. So for those who haven't seen the UI, it's basically every bookie, most bookies available, I'd say 80%. And Betfair stats really good, including the projected SP, which I just found this year. This is a really good stat because you can actually see, right, look at this thing. It traded between 530 and 540 and then blew out to 672 at BSP at Temora 3. That's a very valuable bit of data for me. Whereas you can see the favourite BSP'd within its trading zone. That's a horrid sign to me that there was no professional back money on. Yeah. The chances of Good Time Junior winning, I'd say, are incredibly... And compared to this one, Peggyville, which will be between 11 and 12, and then BSP'd at 8. They're very big discrepancies. So I find this way easier to understand than the interface into Betfair. A lot like just a normal website. The dynamic odds data, which I get from the API, so I get a heap of stuff. Venue type, the code, racing, grays or harness, surface, so it's a soft 5, rail true, the codes I need, the event name, the event prize money, which is 23,000, and then each runner in that race, including the tab number and the barrier number and the jockey. I've got a little website which will show me how many jockeys, how many rides a jockey has in a day. So that's really easy to pull. So you can see here, this jockey had a single ride today, and Damien Lane had a single ride. So if you see a city jockey turning up here, like I scanned through this and see, especially in later races, if someone
making the effort.
Yeah,
Maybe hear a bit more.
Yeah, there was that time. Was it when someone turned up at Goldwood and could barely find it, and was like on a $1.50 hot shot, which was in a different postcode at the end of the race. Yeah, like was either going to have a heart attack and die or win. It was so good. But yeah, so this is really, really good data. That once you've sort of got data, you build ensembles on top of it. So it's a great API.
The one that's just worth noting, and I know I've said this a couple of times before, but Dynamic Odds do have a new API in beta.
Yep.
So personally, I wouldn't be building on top of their old one because I don't think it'll be around very much longer. And I'm not sure what the pricing of their new one is going to look like, because their existing one is an absolute steal, and anyone who knows it knows that they're onto a very good thing using the data that comes through there. And obviously I don't know what the numbers will look like. I'm not saying don't use it. It's a very good source, but yeah, I wouldn't be building on the existing one. I'd be looking to the new one. And if you talk to them, they might even give you beta access.
No, just email support, and
Yeah,
you'll get a call from Scott within about 14 seconds is his number.
Yeah. Even at 8 o'clock at night. No, he's a good egg.
A legend. They're a wonderful in the support team company. Apparently the number one at Tomorrow 3. Good
on it. How surprising.
Yeah.
So you're saying that basically the things you care about here, you care about start time because they're very good at updating.
Yep.
You care about whether it's, trots or pace as an extra check there versus gallops. You're also pulling some things like some of the form data. So whether it's, the track, etc.
Yep.
The track type. Yeah, they're good things. Obviously, bits of that you can get from us. So things like Jockey Trainer, that you can get that from the polling API. That's there too if you want it. But yeah, it is a good source for that other data if that's part of what you're betting on.
Yeah, probably the best source is Every Race, which are the people that do the Sky ratings, the 100, 98, all that stuff, because you can historically get a trainer's win percentage, like on the 19th of July, 2018. And that's a very hard stat to get. What was Mitch Beer's win percentage over winter? At that point in time, right? Like trying to get that point in time stat is very hard. So if you're building a model which incorporates trainer winning percentage, getting that historically is really challenging. And Every Race is the source I use for that. If you buy a single program, you can download a decade worth of historical data. It's very good.
Yeah, historical is amazing. Like, we're all about data, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Whenever you see a good source, grab it and scrape it.
Yeah, well, no comment. Other questions? opening it up, because Nick and I are quite capable of just talking all night between the two of us. Well, I've got a tag somewhere. 1 second. Working a dozen things at once. So, data sources that you'd recommend, Nick, for Australian racing. So, obviously, I'm going to say for prices, if you want Betfair price data, talk to us because we've got it all happy to share. But for form data, this one gets interesting. Thoughts?
Like, I would also throw in FLUC data. So, this data here, hopefully that's... so each price fluctuation you can get from Dynamic Odds. That's very valuable data. I probably use Every Race for form data, and I've been grabbing Race Zone, I think it is, for resulting, including a lengths back margin data.
And have you managed to get that historically, or just as you go?
Since 1 Jan, like obviously 1 Jan 2016 is that special date when BSP became available. So like I don't usually go back further than that because it's the market changed, right? So you can go back, and we have posted in one of our channels, probably some code which might help you understand that site and grab a little bit.
Maybe you could share that again.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Any other particular bits that you'd point people at? I mean, obviously, if you want to buy it, punting.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Really good, and it's amazing, but it's not cheap. So obviously there are different ways of looking at different things.
This is my historical database. So I've got the Betfair data, Betfair meaning this is all BSP data. I've got dynamic odds. I capture a lot from the stream as it comes in. Racing Zone is the one that are fairly friendly. If you want to look at a lot of web pages, a lot. And then Tab. Tab isn't available through dynamic odds. So Tab historical, you can go back a long way. The real data source I'd love to get is probably the official price FLUC data that includes scratching adjustments. But
that'll be nice if they bring in some more consistent reduction factors. That would, if ever, it would make that easier.
And start Tasmanian official price half hour out rather than 5 hours out.
No comment. I've got a really good one here. I really like this one from Rob. Have you found in the past that reliance on external data sources has come back to bite you? I.e., you depend on a good source, but either A, it goes away, or B, it's just not available on a time when it, could have been, i.e. maybe recently there was a day when a major operator was down and you may have had that worked into your models.
Yeah, definitely. So that day of the big outage, that was probably a good day to walk away because no one was resulting races. You guys were doing great, but it was really interesting to see the cascading effects of other major operators that couldn't result their race when the tab went down. Blue and yellow brand looking at you. Why they're so reliant on the tab is weird. I've never been disappointed with that. Like racing changes so much all the time anyway. And your data lives in sync with what's happening in the racing world. So it's sort of part and parcel.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
So you talk about being able to kill things. You talk about logging. Both of those are really important. Do you have things that come and shout at you if something goes wrong? Like I know that my approach is always, if in doubt, don't bet. And if in doubt, throw an error. But if you're not at the computer, that throw error could mean that the next 6 hours you're not getting anything.
Yep.
I know I've got, mates who'll get a text message, people who get Slack notifications. Do you have anything that comes and shouts at you and tells you that in this instance, maybe tab's down and one of your data sources isn't working? Do you have any of that in what you do?
Like the sort of trivial answer is yes, it's me. Like you sit on your bum for 14 hours on a Saturday, which is a hard gig. Yeah. The sort of secondary answer is definitely app insights. Like my primary cloud platform is Azure. Yep. So logs will go into that, and you can run various. It's got machine learning in the background for you, and alerting in the background. And it's dirt cheap. It's a commodity activity. I don't think you need to build it yourself these days.
It depends a little bit on how you like to do it. Like we said, some people, get them saved to Dropbox and they keep a thing on that. Some people get text messages. I think Slack integration is a good one, and then you can have a channel that shouts at you.
Yeah, definitely.
On your preference, but I think it's one that's worth noting, particularly if you're not someone who sits there all the time. If you're someone who's going out and working, or
it is hard. It's really hard. Like for one client, just a totally different industry, I had to work Melbourne Cup Day on real work, and it's just so stressful. Just trying to watch, make sure everything's happening properly.
I remember the last time I tried to have a social life on Cup Day, everything blew up. And I'm just apologising to these friends of mine who don't understand that it's anything other than a public holiday, why this is important. And since then, I've just given up social life on Cup days.
Oh, yeah.
Cup days.
I think that's a sensible thing to treat it pretty seriously and to give up and then to give yourself a break. Now Kingston Town's done. I'm going to have some Saturdays off.
Good.
And bizarrely have like a 2-day weekend. Crazy stuff, yeah.
And maybe going into next year, you'll have some notifications that'll shout at you a bit more. Michael says you've mentioned App Insights a couple of times. It's not one he's particularly familiar on. Can you just share, a 30-second overview?
So you can, from the logging I have here, so just say something's blowing up and I'm not getting program data, this will log an exception. I can then... my log4net config, I've set it up 2 things for the console and to file. I can literally just have another one of these which writes it to Azure App Insights.
Yep.
And so no code change at all.
Can you go to App Insights as an external? Is that the point that you can go and look at that separately?
Yeah, and it will also... It can, and it's got alerting, right? Like it can do a whole bunch of stuff. It's a very complete, like in my day job, this is what I do, right? Like if we were going to set up a system for, the last client was a very big supermarket, and we relied a lot on App Insights. On a whole bunch of stuff like when your database is going bad, it's very, very, very good.
Well, there's a decent bit of advice there for anyone.
The cost is trivial. Like you can sort of get dependency graphs, and it's a very like I know some people prefer AWS, but I think Microsoft has done an outstanding job with this.
It's horses for courses, right? And just what works for your setup.
Yep. Yeah, and it's a lot of work to get familiar with.
Yeah.
There's guys who literally dedicate themselves to this product.
Yeah, well, that helps. Are there any other things you wanted to flag before we wrap up, Nick? Because somehow it got to 7:30.
No, thanks for the opportunity. Really, just jump in. The forums, the Slack community has really exploded in terms of usefulness. So if you're not there, you're doing yourself a disservice. I think everyone's intensely friendly. We've seen, we've barely never seen a fight, right?
No.
And if it is, it's just me and Misha. Like it's just old.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
But it's certainly new user friendly. It's not a type of place where a silly question's going to get rubbished.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. So just for anyone who hasn't seen it, just got a question here. What is the Slack community? So it's something that if you don't know Slack, it's basically an instant messaging app for all intents and purposes. Here is what Slack looks like. One of my very dear clients, let's say, started this group about a year ago as a place to talk to other like-minded people who were using the exchange for modeling and or automation. So it calls itself, Betfair Quants, but basically it's the analytical people in Australia who are interested in the exchange. And it is incredibly active. It's always... Yeah. You can see the amount.
This is like just while we're presenting.
Yeah, and it's great. I love it. From my perspective, it means I get to talk to you guys in real time instead of, dealing with emails or calls, the things that are much less responsive. But but it also means that you get to talk to other people who get it. You know, in wagering, it's really hard. It's quite a niche thing, particularly for people who are more professional / analytical about how they handle it. I think it is a really good place to share, to learn, and to just like-minded from Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand, I'm sorry, Rob, you're there as well. We do have a couple of New Zealanders as well. Yeah, just a really good place to have a wider community. Once upon a time, we'd have gone to the pub together, but you know, that's not necessarily the times that we're in. And I think this has been a really good outcome of the last year of otherwise craziness. So yeah, join us on there. We'll be continuing the conversation afterwards across there. And I do agree, Nick, if you're not there, I think it really helps. Yeah, it really helps a lot of the challenges of the journey.
Absolutely, yeah. There's people on there who I respect immensely. Their skills and knowledge and generosity and insight is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It's a really good spot.
I've shared the sample code a couple of times. You can find that on the Betfair Down Under GitHub repo. If you haven't seen that already, we're trying to add more things to Betfair Down Under. That's our community GitHub repo. If you've got other stuff that you think would be valuable to live on there, please share it. But otherwise, this is there as a code base. I'm also hoping sometime I can con Nick into taking his key points from tonight and turning them into a bit of a getting started on Australian racing article that I can share on the hub. That we'll see where we go with that one.
Oh, for sure. I think it's really important to do that because you get a lot more mentions on gambling Twitter, just Googled, when you do the article. So that's an important part of feeding my ego to try to make his hit list on it.
Yeah, it's fun to see who too. And it is just good to be able to work through it in your own time. The recording of this session will be available in the next week or so on YouTube, and you're welcome to go and look at that. Also, obviously, all our meetups are recorded there too, which can also be really valuable to watch. We're about to jump out into some breakout sessions. So we're going to have 4 of these. They're completely optional, obviously. This is just if you want to talk to Nick, you want to talk to me. We've got Michael and Scott jumping in as well, but also just to each other. So it's completely opt-in. They're not recorded. We'll be on Google Meet, so you can choose to have your video on or off, your mic on or off. This is like us going to the pub after a workshop if we were in person. The 4 topics and facilitators will be programming code with Nick, modeling with Michael, networking, and by networking we mean social networking as opposed to hooking computers into each other, with Scott, and strategy with me. And Ash is going to share the links to those 4 in the chat and in the Slack group, so you can opt into any of them. Once you click on that, one of us is going to have to admit you. So just sit on that pending screen for a second. We'll jump in when we have a chance. More broadly, just as a wrap up, I do want to say again, just huge thanks to Nick. He does have a day job and a side job, so doing this on top of all that, I'm incredibly grateful to you from me and from the community, and just generally for being someone who will jump in and share your learnings and your experience with the wider community, and putting your face out there. That can be quite challenging. So I'm incredibly grateful, and thank you for
thank you. It's a really nice community. We're in a really good spot with where we are at with this community and helping people really advance their automated trading. I think it's awesome.
I would say if anyone's got any feedback, positive, negative, neutral, please shoot it through either our automation at email address or hit me up on Slack. I'm KG. You'll find me pretty quickly. I do a lot of talking. Personality flaw. But also I'd love to hear, if we were to run other workshops like this in the future, who and what would you like to see? Are there people you'd like to see? Are there topics you'd like to see? What sort of style would be valuable to you for this sort of thing if we're looking at some in the new year? Obviously, as well as our normal meetups. This isn't instead of, this is as well as. Otherwise, we're going to jump off here. Make sure you look in the chat. We're we got that. Where's my chat? I've lost my chat box. There we go. So there are 4 options there. There are 4 links. Mine, for some reason, isn't working. Put an HTTPS at the beginning of that. But jump onto those. And if you want to, and yeah, include, we'll just finish the recorded session and jump onto some individual conversations. But thank you so much, Nick. Thanks, Ben and Ash in the background. They do a lot of the legwork and save me having heart attacks every time a bit of tech won't work. So thank you guys as well. And look forward to talking more offline.
Great. Thank you, Karen.